Time to move on to black. Black has been, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best draft and sealed colors for like 3 years. Like every single time they have all the removal, they generally have a fat ass creature, and they have draw, they have ways to drain life. They're just generally, black is really, really good. So let's see how black's looking this time around. Starting with the Abzan Devotee. A 2-mana 2/1, has the mana conversion, sure. And for 3 mana, you can return it from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. You can do sacrifice with it and bring it back. Like, it's not going to the battlefield, so it's not great, but, you know, it's nice to have things you can bring back in times of need when you've got spare mana or nothing to do. I don't hate that ability, it's just not particularly incredible. I think this is just a fine card. Adorned Crocodile is a 5-mana 5/3. Okay, not great, but sure. When this creature dies, you create a 2/2 black zombie. Sure. And renew, tap 1 swamp, exile this creature from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. I think this is okay. It's not particularly exciting. It's a 5-mana 5/3, but when it dies, it just makes another guy. So, like, it's a dude within a dude. And then you can always renew it. So, like, 5 mana for a 5/3, your opponent probably has to block and or kill it because it's it's big on the front end. And then it comes back, and then when it dies, you make a 2/2, and then you can just tap the 1 mana and turn the 2/2 into a 3/3. So, like, at worst, this is like an 8/6 across stats. Hey, Rubbish, how you doing? Nice to see you, buddy. I hope you're having a good day. Yeah, I think this is okay. I think this is pretty good, actually. Just because it's token generation. We reviewing here? Yeah, the newest Magic set. I'm just kind of debating from, like, a limited standpoint what cards I like, what cards I think are good, that sort of stuff. I'm not great at Standard, and probably even worse at Commander, because I only really play Commander pre-cons with, like, some family members who are learning Magic. So, don't expect me to know anything about any of that. But from, like, Draft and Limited and Sealed and stuff, we're just kind of trying to view it from that perspective. And yeah, I'm having a good day. I've been looking forward to this. What's the best you've found yet? Oh, that's going to be back in white. Probably the White Planeswalker. Where's she at? Well, actually, so it's either Smile at Death, this enchantment is crazy, or... Where are you? There. Elspeth Stormslayer. This card is bananas. It's Anointed Procession stapled to Elspeth. Like, it's just bananas. It's the +1 is create 2 1/1 soldier creature tokens because she is also Anointed Procession. The 0 is Overrun with Flying, which is bananas. And the -3 is just destroy a problem. Like, even if you play her for 5 and just -3 to destroy your opponent's big scary thing, it's bananas. This card is bananas. Like, that has to be the best card we've seen so far. By like a substantial way. So yeah. And now we're on to black. Blue, I'm not a big blue player. It is amazing. It absolutely is. I'm not a big blue player. So we kind of went through blue and I tried not to be too mean. I would say the turtle, but they are my favourite animal. I did like the turtle. I will say, of all the blue cards, my favourite one was the turtle, but I wanted Turtle Tribal, and there was no other turtle. She could be played as a commander. I didn't think you could use Planeswalkers as commanders. Well, I thought you could only use certain Planeswalkers as commanders. Again, I don't know. I don't have a commander as well. I thought commanders had to be legendary creatures. Did they change that? Because I know they let some planeswalkers be commanders, but they specifically stated they could be used as a commander, right? I don't know if they've changed the rules. I don't know. But yeah, Elspeth is absolutely bananas. Absolutely bananas. Yeah, this crocodile's fine. I think it's actually better than I'm giving it credit for because it's a big front end attacking creature that you want to die because then you're just making a token out of it anyway, and you still get the ability when it's in the graveyard. So I think this is pretty good. Aggressive Negotiations. 3 mana. Target opponent reveals their hand, choose an online card from it, and exile it, and put +1/+1 counter onto target creature you control. Sure, I don't run these sort of cards, but these cards can be good. They can hit your opponent's crazy thing. I think in limited, that seems really good. What? Aggressive Negotiations? Also, hey Colton, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Spartans!
Thank you for the follow, Rubbish. Thank you very much. I'll let that play out, but thank you very much for the follow. It is very much appreciated. Thank you. Also, it's very funny you're streaming Magic today as my commander deck finally came in. Oh, what commander are you using? What did you make it, or are you did you buy a precon? And yeah, Aggressive Negotiations, they always print a card like this, and I always think it's just kind of fine. The thing is, if you hit something crazy, this card is really good. If you don't, it's just kind of a nothing burger. Alchemist's Assistant, a 2 mana 2/1 with lifelink. Technically neither. A friend gave me a recipe and I bought the cards. Oh, cool. A 2 mana 2/1 monkey with lifelink and renew. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put a lifelink counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Dritz Erden. I have no idea who that is. Your friend the brain and you the wallet. I don't know what Dritz Erden is. I'm sure it's a commander, and I'm sure it's good, but I don't know what it is. Actually, with how many of these renew cards are in black, maybe... So I gave... Where is it? Where's the hoop? I made fun of this card because of it being just a hoop to jump through so that you could do the same thing white does accidentally. But actually, with how many of the cards seem to have this, you get to play me from the graveyard thing. Renew, exile from your graveyard. Maybe that ring is actually better than I give it credit for because a lot of these cards you're just going to play from the graveyard for cheap. One of the D&D commanders. Oh, okay. But yeah, this is good. This is a 2 mana 2/1 with lifelink that you can block or attack with, doesn't really matter, and then when it dies you just give lifelink to something else. I think this is good. Alesha's Legacy. 2 mana, instant, target creature you control gains Death Touch and Indestructible. This has been printed in the past 3 sets. It's very similar to a lot of cards that give Death Touch and Indestructible. Or Death Touch and First Strike and stuff like that. This is a good combat trick. But again, I don't really use combat tricks because I just don't. Avenger of the Fallen. Okay. A 3 mana 2/4 with Death Touch with Mobilize X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Whenever this creature attacks, create X, tapped and attacking 1/1. Yeah. This... I mean, depending on how many creatures you've got in your graveyard, this is terrifying, right? Dragonstorm is a 3 generic, 1 green, 1 white, 3/3 with double strike. When it enters the battlefield, make a 4/1 green token with trample. When a creature dies, if its power is greater than Dritz, it gains +1 counters on Dritz equals difference. Okay. Wait, do they create zombie druids? Because if they do, I'll be able to create a deck with Gilt-Leaf Archdruid. I'm getting hyped. Yeah. A 2/2 black zombie druid. Yeah. That's the token for Sultai. I think Sultai is zombie druids this time round. Yeah, I think this. That's what my Mandritz does. Nice. Heck yeah. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know if Druid's ever really been like an archetype. I would have thought it was Elf, but maybe it is. Maybe Druid's good as well. But yeah, this Avenger of the Fallen is good, right? Because you can just, starting on turn 4, you can swing with it. It's got Death Touch. It's going to kill anything that it fights. And it just starts generating a whole bunch of guys. Assuming you have cards in your graveyard. If you have nothing in your graveyard, this is a 2/4 with Death Touch that does nothing. But it is still a 2/4 with Death Touch, which your opponent is not going to want to block or attack into. So I think this is still good. Maybe you do want a lot of ways. I mean, to be fair, you probably, if you're doing the whole Mardu generate a bunch of tokens, you're probably playing some early creatures and just like swinging for the fences, right? So you've probably had some creatures die. So this is probably good. And it only gets better the later the game goes, right? I think this is a good card. Caustic Exhale. 1 mana. As an additional cost to cast the spell, behold a dragon or pay 1. And it's -3/-3. This is good. This is just removal. Removal's good. We like removal. Corroding Dragons. 2 mana for enchantment. When it enters, each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life and surveil 2. And when a dragon enters, return. This is really good as well. I have 2 cards right now for Druids, but never been able to match them for a deck. This is an Elf Ranger. Nice. Yeah, this Dragonstorm, I think this is the best we've seen so far, right? What was the white one? The white one was make 2 dudes, and it cost 4 mana. And the blue one was draw 2 cards, discard a card for 2 mana. This is just good, right? Your opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And surveil 2. This is really good for a 2 mana enchantment that you can replay if you have any dragons. Again, I don't know how many dragons are actually going to fit into a deck, but even just if you have like 3 dragons, this is, especially if you play it early, 2 life from your opponent, you gain 2, and then you play a dragon, and then 4 life, because you've drained another 2 and gain another 2, and then again, you probably do like 6 damage to your opponent and gain 6 life for this over the course of like a standard game if you've got like 3 or 4 dragons in your deck. This isn't awful. And you get to surveil every time as well. I think this is pretty good. I like this one better than the other ones. I think this is actually pretty good at Limited. Cruel Truths. Surveil 2. Draw 2. Lose 2. Yeah, there's plenty of cards like this. I don't think this is a reprint. I think this is a new one. But there are, 30 different Magic cards that essentially read the same thing. Delta Bloodflies. 2 mana for a 1/2 flyer. Whenever this creature attacks, if you control a creature with a counter on it, each opponent loses 1 life. Okay. There were ways to put counters on things back here. Like, you put a lifelink counter on something, you put a +1/+1 counter on something. So, like, there are ways in black to make this do stuff. It is also a flyer, but it's only a 1/2 flyer. I think this is still fine, right? I think this is still good. You still probably take this just because it's a flyer. And, like, you can get some, like, poke damage in a little bit. And maybe even make your opponent lose a life a couple of times. I think this is fine. Also, if you have, like, 2 or 3 of these, you can actually start killing your opponent pretty fast. I think this is pretty good in Limited, actually. Desperate Measures. 1 mana instant type creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. When it dies under your control, draw 2 cards. This is good. Oh, +1/-1, sorry. So, this reads, make a creature a little bit bigger and maybe trade with a creature your opponent controls, or kill one of those stupid 1/1 Mardu tokens that I've been making a million of before they get exiled at the end of turn, and draw 2 cards. Like these things, Mobilize. Whenever it attacks, you create tapped attacking 1/1 warrior creature tokens and sacrifice them at the beginning of the end step. So what you do is you desperate measures your own creature and draw 2 cards. I don't understand why it's not just sacrifice a creature, but I guess maybe they had enough of those sacrifice creatures things. But yeah, this is like sacrifice a token, draw 2 cards. Which, you know, good. Dragon's Prey. 3 mana, costs 2 or more. This spell costs 2 more to cast if it targets a dragon. Destroy target creature. Okay. I don't mind that. That's pretty good. 3 mana, destroy something, but it costs more if it's a dragon. That is very, very on theme. I like that. Yeah, I like this card. Maybe because sacrificing a creature can get a lot more for you than if you sacrifice a token. Yeah, I think this maybe it has to be like +1/-1 to a creature so that it's specifically like Mardu-y, I guess. Because or else you could just sacrifice creatures in any of the other classes, any of the other things, because they all seem to be making tokens this time round. Feral Deathgorger. Okay. 6 mana for a 3/5 flying death touch. When this creature enters, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. Okay, I mean, the death touch probably still makes this good. Because, like, it's a flying death toucher, so either nothing can block it, or it kills whatever's blocking it. Whatever it blocks. So if they've got a big dragon, you can just throw this under the bus. If they don't have a big dragon, you can just eat whatever's in the way and just keep going. Dusk Sight, 2 mana sorcery, the Omen cast. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature, draw a card. That's good. This is actually pretty good. I think, honestly, you probably cast it for Dusk Sight more than anything else. But +1/+1. So make one of my creatures bigger and draw a card, and then shuffle this back into your deck is really good. Especially early on when you're not planning on playing the dragon side. I think this is probably one of the better dragons with Omen we've seen so far. Oh, for fuck's sake. Gurmag Rakshasha. What? Rakshash? That thing. 6 mana for a 5/5 with Menace. Cool. When this creature enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn, and target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Sure. It doesn't have flash, so it's not like a combat trick. You're kind of doing this on your main phase 1. He is a big guy with Menace, but he's on the ground. I think this is probably okay. Because he's probably, like, best case scenario, he's a 5/5 that kills a guy and makes one of your guys so big he can't be blocked. Worst case scenario, he's a 5/5 that makes one of your opponent's creatures smaller and makes itself a 7/7 until end of turn. Like, it's okay. It's nothing, insane. It's very mediocre, I think. Most of the time. I think it's very mediocre. Because it doesn't have flash or anything, so it's probably maybe killing a creature with the -2/-2, maybe not. Maybe it's just killing like a token with the -2/-2. Sure. 100 Battle Veteran is a 4 mana 4/2. As long as there are 3 or more different kinds of counters among creatures you control, this creature is a 6/6. You may cast this card from your graveyard. If you do, it enters with a finality counter. Okay. So this is a 4 mana 4/2 unless you jump through 3 hoops. And then it's a 6/6 with no text. But you can cast it from your graveyard with a finality counter, which is one of the 3, so you only need 2. +1/+1 counter is another easy one because we've already seen that. And then we've seen a singular monkey that does the lifelink counters. And that's currently the only way to trigger this. Have we seen any other counters? Don't think so. We haven't seen flying counters. Oh, the blue guy puts suspend counters on things. But then they're not creatures because they don't exist yet, right? Maybe they are. Yeah, they probably are still creatures, they're just suspended, right? I don't know. This is probably okay. Again, this is probably a card where you're there like, yeah, sure, I'll run one. But you're not particularly excited about it. It's probably just a 4-2 most of the time. Maybe it's a 6-6 when you bring it back with a finality counter. But that's probably the only time it's a 6-6, so... In-Tree Nurturer is a 3-mana, 2-1 with lifelink, and when it enters, it endures. So it's actually a 3-mana, 3-2 with lifelink, and a 1-1 spirit. I like these. The guys who enter and then endure, so they get a little bit bigger and have tokens. I think this is worse than the other one, because the other one was a 2-mana, 2-3 that came with a token. This is a 3-mana, 3-2 that comes with a token. But it does have lifelink. And yeah, I think I like the endure mechanic. I think the endure mechanic is pretty good. Krumar Initiate is a 2-mana 2-2 with pay black and X, tap it. Pay X life, this creature endures X. Okay. I mean, this is probably pretty good, right? Health is a resource and all that gaff everyone chats about. Like, your opponent plays a 5-5 while you've got this on the field. You just make a 6-6 by paying 6 life so they still can't attack into you. It's not awful. Is it worth 6 health? Depends if you get attack with it. I don't know. You do have to pay mana and life. So it's probably your entire turn to make the bigger thing. Maybe this is too slow. Maybe it's too slow and too much of a commitment. I think. This is one of those ones where it could be really good or it could just be too much of a commitment to it. The creature doesn't come in tapped, so it can just block. So it's not like you're losing a blocker by tapping this guy down, but you are paying life and mana for it. I'm not too excited about this. I think this might be a bit too much of an investment in the creature. Nightblade Brigand is a 3-mana 1-3 with Death Touch and Mobilize. So whenever it attacks, you get extra dudes, and when it enters, surveil 1. This is good. This is a good little card. Comes in, surveils, you get to put cards into your graveyard if you don't want them, or you can keep them on top. Great, cool. It's got Death Touch, so nobody wants to attack into it for that turn. And then you start swinging with it, nobody wants to block it. It's also making extra dudes that you can do your, like, sacrifice to draw stuff and all that shenanigans. Nobody's going to want to block it because it's a Death Touch. This card is good on the attack, good on the block. Enables a bunch of your like shenanigans-y stuff and just has a good end to the battlefield effect. I think this is a good card. This is just, you want to have a couple of these, I think, in most decks. Kasari Revenant is a 3-mana 3-3 flying Death Touch lifelink. Vampire Nighthawk in shambles. Renew for 3. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put a flying, Death Touch, and lifelink counter on target creature. Okay, well, there's your 3 different types of... Also, this card is jacked. This is nuts. This is... I think Vampire Nighthawk was one of the best cards ever printed in a limited set ever. And this is better Vampire Nighthawk. Right? Like Vampire Nighthawk is 3 mana for a 2/3 with Flying Death Touch and Lifelink. This is 3 mana for a 3/3 with Flying Death Touch and Lifelink. And when it dies, you can give Flying Death Touch and Lifelink to something else. This card is bananas. This card is stupid as fuck. It is a rare. So Vampire Nighthawk was an uncommon. This is at least a rare. But yeah, Jesus. Yeah, you're right. This card is bonkers. To be fair, Black hasn't had that many like really cracked out cards so far. But this is the first one where I'm just like, yeah, this is just bananas. Like, Flying Death Touch Lifelink, you give this thing fucking first strike or double strike and your opponent just fucking concedes. Your opponent's just there like, yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that. Like, this is such a dirty combination of abilities. Flying Death. So, it has evasion, it kills anything that tries to stop it or that it blocks, and you heal from all of the damage it deals. And then it gives all of those abilities to anything else from the graveyard. This is bananas. This is bananas good. It just is. This is absolutely fucking bananas. This is so good. Rock Cursed Rakshasa is a 2 mana 5/5. What? With trample. Because of course it is. Decayed. This creature can't block, okay? When it attacks... Oh, we've seen Decayed before. It was usually on zombies. I mean, this is still 5 damage to your opponent's face on turn 3. Renew 2 black and X. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put a Decayed counter on each of up to X target creatures. But you can put those on your opponent's creatures, right? So you can make... So you play this on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you swing with a 5/5 with trample. Your opponent says, yeah, bugger it, I don't care, I'll just take 5 to the face. Yeah, but no. So, right. You swing with this on turn 3. You crack them in the mouth for 5. It's a quarter of their health. This dies, so they didn't block it because this dies anyway, and it's got trample, so why would you block it? And then the next turn, you make it so 2 of their creatures, or that turn, make 1 of their creatures, depending on how many creatures they've got on the board. But you can make 1 or 2 of their creatures get decayed, so they can't block, and if they attack, they get sacrificed. That's good. This has to be good. This has to be. Because it doesn't say exile this card from your graveyard, put a decay counter on each of up to X creatures like you control. It's just creatures. So you just put them on your opponent's creatures so they can't block. And you did a quarter of their health turn 1. Sorry, not turn 1, turn 3. And then you just start swinging because their creatures can't block. And if they swing back, they only swing back once and then get sacrificed. This has to be good. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not as good as I'm thinking it is, but I think it's just good, right? I think it has to be. It's just like lightning bolt, or not even, it's just like a big damage to your opponent's face, and then their creatures are crippled from then on. Yeah, I think this is good. Definitely. Like, it's not Kasari Revenant cracked, but I still think it's good. It's just big. It just hurts people. And then also makes their creatures kind of shitty. Yeah, I think this is good. Salt Road Skirmish is a... I had to walk my dog. Did I miss any turtles? No, we still haven't seen any turtles, Noob. Still no turtles. Salt Road Skirmish. 4 mana for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. Create 2 warriors. They gain haste. Sacrifice them. It's removal. We're probably just taking it because it's removal, right, chat? We're probably just saying, hey, look, it says destroy on it. And creature. Yoink. Like, it's removal. It probably just gets played. Sandskitter Outrider. A 4 mana 2/1 with Menace, but it endures 2 when it enters. So it is a 4 mana 4/3 that also creates a 2/2 that also has Menace. So and this has Menace. This is good as well, right? This is just good. Oh, or create a 2/2 white spirit. Oh, I was doing both. I didn't read the or. Oh, thank you. I've been mistakenly reading Endure the entire fucking time so far. It is one or the other. Oh, that makes Endure considerably worse. Okay, that makes Endure considerably worse, actually. If it was both, that would be terrifying. Yeah, I was reading it as both and being like, I feel like Endure is just cracked. But, yeah, no, okay, so it's one or the other. So this is either a 4/3 with Menace or a 2/1 with a 2/2. Okay. I think this is still fine. I don't think it's good. I think it's just I think this is just kind of fine. Like now that I know that Endura is not quite as insanely jacked as I thought it was, that makes every card I've looked at with Endura a little bit worse. But specifically this one is it's kind of mediocre. Like eh. Uh Scavenger Regent is a 4 mana 4/4 flying with ward, discard a card. Okay, like it. And it is its Omen card, Exude Toxin. 2 and X. Each non-dragon creature gets -X until the end of turn, and then you shuffle it back in. This is good. I like this. This is, you know, small to medium-sized board sweeper stapled to dragon. But if you want the dragon to beat your opponent, you can't use the sweeper because the sweeper shuffles the dragon back into your deck. I think this is the first one where actually, like, the other ones were a choice, but they were just there, like, the dragon costs 8 and the spell costs 2, so if you had 8 mana, you were probably playing the dragon. If you had 2 mana, you were probably playing the spell. This is the first one where at 4 mana, you actually have to take a moment and say, do I want a flying 4/4 with ward? Probably. Or do I want to remove all of the tokens this Mardu player or this Abzan player has shit out in the past, 3 turns, 4 turns? Because you could give every creature -2/2, which probably clears most of the board for token players. So this card is very good for limited, and I like that it's actually a decision. I really like it. So I think the Omen change compared to Adventure makes these cards way more interesting. I like these a lot. The Sibsig Ceremony. Right? Triple black for a legendary enchantment. Creature spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Right? When you cast when a creature you control enters, if you cast it, destroy that creature. Then create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So I think in limited this is crap. I think in limited this is crap because I don't think you can build enough around it. But I think in standard or other sort of commandery things, I think this is crazy, right? Because this essentially says your creatures are cheap and they die if you play them from hand. But if that's what your deck is built around, the creatures you play from hand either want to die or have entered the battlefield effects so that their entire effect is done when they enter, and you don't care about them dying, or you have a bunch of graveyard recursion where you just bring them back from the graveyard, and then they don't get triggered by the destroy the creature thing. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, a bunch of tokens. So with like this, this now costs 2. You play this, it dies. You get a 2/2 white spirit because of the endure, and you get a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So you essentially paid 2 mana for a 4/4 across 2 bodies. Like, token generation creatures and stuff that you play from your graveyard, love this card. The issue is, can you get, again, I've said this a couple of times, can you get critical mass of those cards in your limited deck? And I don't think you can. Also, this is triple black. Triple black is a really restrictive cost. I think in standard and commander and stuff, there's a deck that this creates. This creates a whole deck by itself, probably. But I think in limited, I don't think you can get there with the creatures. Unless you get really lucky. Maybe you get really lucky and this is just bananas. But I don't think so. I think it's kind of crap in limited. Sidisi, Regent of the Mire, is a 2-mana 1/3 with tap, sacrifice creature you control with mana value X other than her. Return type creature card with mana value X +1 from the graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a source. This is great. Good sack outlet. Because while the tokens you're creating from mobilizing have a mana value of 0, 0 + 1 is still 1, which means anything that costs 1 you can bring back. And then if you've got something that costs 1 on the field, you can bring back something that costs 2. And if she brings back something that costs 2, you can bring back something that costs 3. Like, the tokens are a good way to start the scale. So, this is a creature, like, you play this and your opponent has to kill it. Oh, wait. Yeah, no, yeah. You can sacrifice, yeah. So, yeah. Like, as long as you can generate tokens through, like, Mardu or Abzan or Jeskai, whatever you're doing. Jeskai's obviously not black, so this is Jeskai. But you know what I mean. If you can generate any of the tokens in this set, they start at 0. So then 0 + 1 is 1. So you can at least get a 1 mana card back. And then once you have a 1 mana card back with her, you can start working your way through other cards in your graveyard. So she can keep reanimating your graveyard. She just has to start with a 1 mana creature. So this is probably good. It might be a bit too slow for limited. But hey, Salt, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day. But yeah, I think she might be a bit slow, but I think she can just keep reanimating your graveyard. I think she has to get removed, right? Like, you have to remove her. Because they're just going to keep... It just keeps... Every time you attack and your opponent blocks with a 1 mana thing, this just taps and brings that 1 mana thing back. Or taps, sacrifices the 1 mana thing, brings a 2 mana thing back. Like, this can get out of hand really quickly. Especially if there's, like, a good creature that your opponent has that they just want to keep reanimating. This can just keep doing it. Sinkhole Surveyor is a 2 mana 1/3 flyer. When this creature attacks, you lose 1 life and this creature endures. Yeah, this is probably good. It's a 2 mana 1/3 flyer, which means it probably doesn't get blocked in the air for a while, which means you probably get like 2 or 3 attacks out of this thing, which does mean you lose 2 or 3 life, but health is a resource, you're fine. And you get, this thing either gets big, or you get a bunch of tokens, shit out of it. Like, I think this is good. I think this is very good, actually. This is probably one of the better limited cards we've seen. It does token generation, it's a flyer, it does +1/+1 counters if you want them. It can just become a huge problem itself. This is a good card. I think this has to be a good card. Strategic Betrayal. 2 mana, target opponent exiles a creature they control and their graveyards. Ah. Okay. So, target opponent exiles a creature they control is obviously just removal, so we like that. It is one they control, and a lot of creatures in this set seem to poop out a token. But you also get their graveyard. This is probably good, right? I don't know. Maybe because your opponent gets to pick the creature, this is actually just bad removal. But you also hit their graveyard, and it only costs 2. But then, like, the best time to use this for the exile a creature is on turn 2. Like, your opponent plays their first creature on turn 2, and you just play this on turn 2, and it just, or turn 3, and it just removes the creature. And at that point, they're not going to have a graveyard, so the second effect doesn't matter. And when you want to use this on a graveyard, it's going to be like turn 10 or something. And by that point, your opponent's going to have 5 creatures, so they're just going to pick a shitty one. I don't know. I think I'd run like one of these in my deck. I don't think I'd run more than one. And then I'd just have to pick when I use it. And I'd probably always make the wrong decision and get punished for it. But it's not good removal. It's like bad removal stapled to oh yeah and graveyard. It's like meh at best. Unburied Earthcarver. 2 mana for a 2/2, sacrifice another creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Yep, good. I like it. I'm going around telling streamers about a website I made for doing set reviews. MTG set review. It's basically a computer-generated PowerPoint with pretty animations. That's okay. We have this set up currently. It's one my partner put together. He's actually putting together a full program that we were going to use for this set review. But the program still needs a little bit of finishing, so he's still working on it. But thank you for the offer. Yeah, I like this card specifically in the Mardu, right? Because all of the Mardu tokens exile at the end of turn. So you swing, generate a bunch of tokens, do a bunch of damage, and then just, devour all of the tokens, and this gets big. So I think this is really good in Mardu. You can probably also use this to just eat, like the spirits in the Abzan deck. But I think specifically in the Mardu deck, this is just going to get kind of out of control pretty quickly. Unrooted Ancestor. A 3 mana, 3/2 with flash. You can sacrifice another creature for 1, and this creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. This is good. This is a good creature. Pay this for 3 at the end of your opponent's turn. It comes down, and then you can start with flash, and then you can start swinging with it. Or if you need it as a blocker, it can just sit there, and when your opponent attacks, you block with this, then sacrifice a creature. It becomes tapped, but it's already declared as a blocker, so that doesn't matter. And this creature can't die. So you just have an infinite blocker as long as you've got stuff to sacrifice. I suppose the only problem here is that, like, Mardu tokens can't really fuel this thing because they only exist on your turn. But the Abzan tokens can because they exist forever, so I think this is pretty good. Venerated Storm Singer. A 4 mana, 3/3 with Mobilize. Mobilize 1. Whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1. This is crazy, right? This is crazy. Because the Red Warrior creature tokens get sacrificed at the end of turn. So even if you've just got like this and then... Where's the other? This, that's already 2. And there was another one in white. I'm not going to go all the way back to white. But there was the caravan in white that has mobilize 3. So you attack with these 2 in the caravan that's like turn 3. You mobilize 5 1/1s. Your opponent, blocks 2 of them if they can. Takes 3 damage. And then the 2 creatures that died, they lose a life, you gain a life. And then at the end of your turn, those 3 creatures die. They lose 3 life. You gain 3 life. Like this card is really good in the Mardu setup, right? With mobilize, this is just really good in the Mardu setup. Because you already want to be pumping out a bunch of the warrior tokens and sacrificing them, and this just is everything you want. Whenever a creature you control dies, your opponent gets punished for it. So good. This is, if you are playing the Mardu setup, you want like as many of this card as you can fit. This is really good. Whale of War. A 3-mana instant. Creatures target opponent controls gets -1/-1. Or return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. This is okay. Fine, I guess. Like, I don't know if the -1/-1 to all your opponent's creatures really matters. I mean, when it matters, it's game winning. When it doesn't matter, it just sits in your hand and rots. But I suppose then you can always just bring 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, which is fine. Like, at worst, this card is fine. I don't know if I'd run it, but I might have 1 copy just for the return 2 creature cards, because the other option is, there, functional if you need it. Worthy cost, a 1 mana and additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, exile target creature or planeswalk. Mardu loves this spell. Actually, any Mardu, Abzan, anyone who can create the tokens loves this spell. Because this is 1 mana, sacrifice one of your crappy tokens that you accidentally made at some point, exile something. This is very good with the 2 specifically Mardu and Abzan setups. Actually, to be fair, Sultai makes the 2/2 zombies, right? So every single color, every single group, what are they? The clans, every single one of the clans is doing something tokeny from what I can tell. So this is just good in any of the clans because they all make tokens. Yathan Tomb Guard is a 3-mana 2/3 with menace. Whenever a creature you control with a counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Sure. Card draw's nice. This is a menace creature, so we can get in. The stats on it aren't completely awful. We've had a lot of ways to put counters on things. +1/+1 counters, lifelink counters. There was the cracked out flying lifelink death touch counter generator one. There's a finality counter one. So yeah, this is probably fine. Like, if you have a bunch of counter synergy, you probably just run this. Hey, that's all of black. Right, what did I think of black? I think so black has much less just this card is insane and I win the game off it cards. Like Sinkhole Surveyor and the Scavenger Regent Dragon are probably the 2 best just like... Oh, sorry, and the Kasari Revenant. This card is bananas. I will give it this card is bananas. But a lot of the other cards are just not, like, what did they have? So for Bloomburrow, they had the giant owl flyer that put everything's toughness to 1. For Duskmourn, they had the 9/9 Valgavoth thing. Like, what was the last set? Last set was wow, I actually can't remember. Oh, the Death Race. And they had, what's the car? The 1313 Death Shadow. Which was really good. Like, The Krasari Revenant, this thing will win games by itself. It absolutely will. But this is the only card that I'm like, this absolutely just wins a game by itself, right? Like, they've got some decent cards, like Avenger of the Fallen is good. They've got the best removal, but Black always has the best removal. They've got a lot of good token generating shenanigans and stuff. Like, this Rock Curse Rakshasha is nice. If you sneeze and I replied, bless you, just say thank you. I don't want to hear those, why are you in my house? Why is the window broken? Or I'm calling the cops. Hey, Paranoid, how you doing? Oh, but yeah, Black has some really good cards. Or, like, some good cards. But it's not, you know, complete one-sided, Black is the best color, like some of the last sets have been. I still think White's probably doing the best at the moment, with the planes, with what's her name, Elspeth being absolutely fucking insane, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Save it, I don't want to hear those. Yeah. So yeah, I think Black is doing well for itself, but I think they've toned down Black just being the best color in Limited by like 20 points, which is nice. I still think it's probably the best color, because it still has the best removal, but that's fine.